Hey, can I be real with you for a second? There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from weakness, defeat, or fear. It comes from awakening, from finally realizing who you are and what you bring to the table. It's not the silence of giving up, it's the silence of standing up, rising, reclaiming your peace. It's the kind of silence that grows in the space where explanations used to live. The long texts, the repeated justifications, the desperate attempts to be understood by someone who was never listening in the first place. It's when you stop begging to be seen and finally look in the mirror and see yourself. There comes a point when you stop explaining your worth to someone who is blind to it all along. You stop chasing, you stop reacting, you stop fighting for space in a heart that was never open, and in that stillness, something powerful begins. That silence, your silence, it becomes the loudest, most undeniable force in the room. She feels it. Oh, she feels it more than any words you could have ever spoken, because silence doesn't echo, it haunts. It's in the moments she thought you'd come back, in the spaces she expected you to fill, in the absence she never imagined would be permanent. When a man detaches, not out of revenge, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect, he becomes unforgettable. Not because of what he said, but because of everything he no longer needed to say. That kind of silence carries weight. It speaks volumes. If you've been the one always reaching out, always checking in, always trying harder, I see you. If you've given love without limits, patience without thanks, presence without condition, and all you got in return was distance or indifference, stay with me, because this is the moment things shift. This is the moment you stop explaining your soul to someone who was never ready to receive it. This is the moment your silence becomes your power, not as a weapon, but as a boundary, not to hurt her, but to finally protect yourself. Because the truth is, silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you finally care about you. Because what I'm about to tell you might just shift everything. Point 1, she can't handle the silence she once created. And here's the truth most people won't admit. She may have started the distance, but she never expected you to meet her in it. She thought silence would give her the upper hand. She assumed pulling back would make you move closer, that ignoring your messages would make you try harder, and that acting cold would light a fire in you to chase what she was carelessly pushing away. She was counting on your loyalty, your patterns, your heart that always showed up no matter how many times it got overlooked. But what she didn't count on was you waking up to your own value. What she never anticipated was that you would go quiet too. Not out of pettiness, not to make her feel what you felt, but because you finally realized your worth doesn't need to scream to be heard. The moment you stopped explaining, stopped apologizing for simply loving deeply, and stopped running after someone who was walking away, that's the moment everything shifted, because silence is a mirror. And now, instead of seeing your devotion in her reflection, she's forced to see her own actions, the ones she thought would have no consequence. That silence you're giving her, it's not absence, it's presence, magnified. It becomes the loudest, most uncomfortable truth in the room. It echoes in her mind louder than your words ever did, because now it's her own voice she hears, her own doubt, her own regret. Now she's sitting in that silence wondering, why hasn't he reached out? Did I go too far? Did I lose him for good? Is he moving on without me? That's not revenge. That's reality finally catching up. You're not being cold, you're being clear. You're not punishing her, you're protecting yourself. And you're not playing games, you've just stopped playing hers. This isn't cruelty, this is clarity. This is you prioritizing your peace over someone else's confusion. And once you do that, once you stop giving your energy to someone who couldn't see your light when it was right in front of them, that's when you become unforgettable. Not because you're gone, but because you finally stopped chasing and started choosing you. Quick break. Close your eyes for a second. Picture her, the girl you've always wanted. Feel what it would be like to actually have her. Now open your eyes, because here's the truth. Right now, you're invisible to her. You're getting outcompeted by guys with more money, better looks, higher status, and stronger game. You're playing a rigged game, and you're losing, but I've spent the last 35 years mastering this, studying, testing, and finally finding the secrets to get the girls I always wanted. You want to stop getting ignored? You want her chasing you? Then you need to wake up and act. Click the link in the comments if you are truly committed and take the first step toward becoming that guy. Few spots left. Be fast or miss out your last chance to make her yours. Let's get back to it. Point 2. Emotional stillness is more powerful than reaction. You want to know what truly throws her off? It's not your anger. It's not your heartbreak on display. It's your calm. It's when she expects an emotional explosion, a text at midnight, a long paragraph, a voicemail full of pain, and instead you give her nothing. No response, no reaction, no chase, just silence. And that silence, it cuts deeper than anything you could have said, because silence is confusing when someone is used to controlling you through your emotions. Most guys, when they feel hurt or disrespected, respond impulsively. They raise their voice, send messages they later regret, beg for clarity, or try to guilt the woman into understanding their pain. And she knows that. She's expecting it. In fact, a part of her relies on it. Because when you react, you prove she still has access to your emotional world. You're still invested. You're still available. But the moment you refuse to play that game, when you remain completely still, not to be cold, but because you're protecting your peace, everything shifts. No calls, no posts, no attempts to prove a point, just presence withdrawn. And that stillness, that's not indifference, that's emotional maturity, that's power. It says, I'm not here to perform my pain. I'm here to heal it in silence. It puts the responsibility for the damage back in her lap, where it belongs. She has to sit in the mess she created without the distraction of your emotional response, and that's where the discomfort begins to grow. That's where the regret has room to breathe. What you're doing is removing her ability to feel in control. You're no longer reacting, and without your reaction, she has nothing to push against, nothing to manipulate, nothing to feed off. She thought she could trigger a version of you that would come running. But when you stay silent, when your emotions are kept behind a closed door she no longer has the key to, the game ends. You take back the narrative, and in that silence, she starts to question herself. Not because you made her feel small, but because you made her feel nothing. No validation, no confirmation, no comfort. Just the stillness of a man who has chosen peace over chaos. That's when she begins to spiral. Not because you shouted, but because you didn't say a single word. That's the kind of silence she never saw coming, and that's the kind of silence she'll never forget. Point 3. Disappearing creates space for her regret to grow. Every time you choose silence instead of engagement, distance instead of desperation, you're planting a seed in her mind. A quiet, subtle seed that doesn't sprout immediately, but grows with time and stillness. At first, she might not feel it. She might even feel relieved, thinking you finally let go. But silence has a delayed effect. As the hours turn into days and the days into weeks, something begins to shift. She doesn't hear from you. There are no messages, no calls, no likes, no stories, no signs of you lingering in her world. And suddenly, that seed starts to grow, slowly, steadily, into something she can't ignore: regret. This isn't about playing games or trying to make her miss you. This is about reaching a place in yourself where you're no longer begging to be acknowledged. You're no longer auditioning for a role in someone else's life. You've simply chosen to walk away, not to punish, but to protect your soul. And in doing so, you've done something more powerful than any speech or final goodbye. You've removed your presence completely. And trust me, that absence will speak volumes in the silence. Because now, instead of just recalling your words, she starts remembering how you made her feel. The comfort of your calm, the reliability of your consistency, the weight of your loyalty. She starts stacking those memories up against what's in front of her, and suddenly, everything else starts to look small, inconsistent, conditional, temporary. Your silence becomes a mirror she didn't ask for, showing her what she took for granted. But more than anything, your silence gives her something she can't run from: time. time to reflect, time to sit with her own decisions, time to realize that your love wasn't something that could be replaced. Because it wasn't just what you gave, it was how you gave it. And as she sits in that space, replaying moments, rethinking choices, and wondering where it all shifted, the regret begins to settle in. Not the kind of regret that passes in a day, but the kind that lingers, heavy, sharp, and undeniable, because now she realizes you were the real thing, and the real thing doesn't come around twice. Point 4. Peace is confusing to people who thrive in chaos. Let's tell the truth. Some people simply don't know how to exist without conflict. They're conditioned for the emotional roller coaster, for the back and forth, for the heated arguments followed by temporary affection. Chaos is their comfort zone, and control is their currency. So when you, the one who used to engage, finally decide to detach with calmness, not with anger, not with pettiness, but with quiet certainty, it shakes them. Because now you're not responding, you're not defending yourself, you're not reacting, and to someone who relies on drama to feel relevant, that's terrifying. See, to her, your silence isn't just unsettling, it's threatening. You've become unpredictable, and unpredictability means she can no longer manage your emotions. She can't guilt you into a conversation. She can't cry and expect you to come running. She can't give you just enough attention to keep you hooked. You've broken the cycle, the emotional pattern she once counted on to keep you within reach. And when that pattern shatters, so does her illusion of control. What happens next isn't love, it's fear. She starts reaching, not because she suddenly realized your value, but because she senses you found something without her that she could never provide: peace. And nothing is more threatening to someone who lives in chaos than watching someone they once controlled walk away without flinching, without bitterness, without begging, just gone, quietly, confidently, and without needing to be understood. Your peace is power. It unsettles the people who thought they'd always have a way back in, and it forces them to confront the fact that they weren't the calm in your life, they were the storm. Now, all that's left is the silence, and in that silence is something they never expected to face, the version of you that no longer needs them. That's what haunts them, not your anger, not your pain, but the serenity you found once you let them go. Point 5. A man who can walk alone becomes irresistible. There's a quiet kind of strength that shifts the entire dynamic, and it shows up the moment you stop needing her. You're no longer checking your phone hoping for her name to pop up. You're not scrolling through her social media, not wondering where she is or who she's with. You're not waiting, not watching, not chasing. You're walking forward, alone and unbothered, and you're not lonely. You're focused on your healing, focused on your growth, focused on your purpose. Because when a man learns how to rebuild himself quietly, without announcements, without theatrics, without performing his pain for the world, something shifts inside him. He becomes grounded, centered, whole, and that energy, it's magnetic. Not because he's trying to be seen, but because he no longer needs to be. He's done chasing validation, done trying to prove he's enough, done handing his power to someone who couldn't see his worth. He's finally choosing peace over performance, solitude over codependency, self-respect over desperation. She notices. Oh, she notices. She sees it in your silence, the kind of silence that doesn't beg to be understood, but commands respect. She feels it in your absence, the weight of a presence that once filled her life, now gone without warning, without fanfare, without bitterness, and she recognizes it in your energy, the steady, grounded calm of a man who no longer has anything to prove. You didn't walk away to teach her a lesson. You walked away because the lesson was already over. That kind of man, he's unforgettable. He haunts her in the quiet moments, not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't. Because once a woman realizes that the man she once took for granted no longer needs her to be okay, no longer needs her to be whole, no longer waits for her love like a starving man, that's when it hits her. Not in a flash, but in waves, regret, curiosity, longing. But by the time she feels it all, you've already outgrown it, you've already outpaced the past, and now you're too far gone for her to reach. Point 6. When you stop needing closure, you become untouchable. One of the deepest traps men fall into after heartbreak is chasing closure. That desperate loop of, if I could just talk to her one more time, if I could just understand why. But the truth is, closure isn't something another person gives you. It's something you claim for yourself. Closure is not found in a text, a phone call, or a final conversation. It's found in the quiet decision to stop bleeding for someone who never offered a bandage. It's you saying, I don't need an apology, I don't need an explanation, I choose me. And that choice, that inner declaration, is what makes you emotionally untouchable. Because now she can't manipulate your emotions. She can't guilt trip you into staying connected. She can't bait you into reacting or breadcrumb you into hoping. You're no longer tethered to her narrative. You're not waiting for her to make it make sense. You've made peace with the confusion because peace is more important than answers. You've moved on. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and that's when the dynamic shifts. That's when the tables flip, because she thought you'd always be lingering, always waiting, always questioning your worth in her absence, but instead, your silence showed her the truth. You never needed her to feel whole. She just filled a space you've now learned to fill with your own strength. And once you find that kind of power, the kind that doesn't need closure to close the chapter, you become the one no one can touch. Not because you're cold, but because you've grown too far to be reached by the same pain again. Point 7. Her curiosity becomes her punishment. You want to know what lingers in the mind of someone who lost a good man? Curiosity. And not the playful kind, the aching, obsessive kind. Because once you go truly silent, once you stop engaging entirely, no texts, no views, no responses, no reactions, something starts to happen. She begins to feel it. Not all at once, but in waves. First, it's subtle. A thought here, a question there, then it grows. Is he seeing someone else? Did I ever really matter to him? Why hasn't he reached out? What used to be her comfort, your constant attention, is now her torment. You're not ignoring her to hurt her. You're simply done feeding her ego. You've stepped out of the emotional loop where she gets to pull you in and push you away at will. And now she's starving. Starving for the attention she used to get so effortlessly. Starving for the validation she once took for granted. And it's not because she misses you, not at first. It's because you've become a mystery, and people don't walk away from mysteries. They chase them. They replay them in their minds, obsessively trying to decode what happened, what changed, what they lost. But here's the twist. Your silence was never meant to punish her. It was meant to protect you, to finally draw the boundary between who you are and who you'll never be again. Someone who settles for less just to feel loved. And the most haunting thing you'll ever leave behind is not a harsh word or a dramatic goodbye. It's your absence. The quiet, confident kind that says, I loved you, but I love myself more. So if you're wondering whether to reach out, don't. Let your stillness speak. Let your silence echo. Because in the end, the man who walks away without bitterness, without fanfare, and without looking back, is the one she remembers the loudest and the longest. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. If this message spoke to you or gave you something to think about, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new drop. I've got more real talk, more growth, and more power coming your way. So stay locked in. And if you're going through something right now, just remember, your silence can say more than 1,000 words ever could. Take care of yourself, keep rising, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.